Noah, let's face it, if you go anywhere these days, you need a mask.
That's right, Clint. If you go to the bank or the gym or even the store, you're going to be required to wear one for the foreseeable future.
If you're going to be rocking a mask, why not do it in style while celebrating the Chiefs Super Bowl victory in the process?
Absolutely. Visit our friends at Noble Apparel to check out all their selections of masks that come in all styles, from Frozen to Spider-Man, and of course our defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs.
Noble Apparel is KC born and bred, and their merchandise is by Chiefs fans for Chiefs fans.
Visit NobleApparelKC.com or check them out on Facebook today at Noble Apparel 816.
This is your Olympic hero and former WWE champion, Kurt Angle. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my guys, Clint and Noah. When it comes to covering sports, there is no one better. And believe me, that's true. It's damn true.
Gentlemen, you are the top 1%.
The elite. Best of the best.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo! I'm the man. The best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
You know, when they talk about the elite. The elite. You ever see the elite? You're the elite. You are the elite.
You are now listening to the Elite Sports Podcast, brought to you by Vermeil Wines and powered by GASN Sports, the pinnacle of hard-hitting sports talk, featuring weekly expert analysis and top-notch interviews. And now, please welcome your hosts, Noah Groniger and Clint Schweitzer.
And returning valiantly from our trip to Knoxville, it is the Elite Sports Podcast, Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger. Noah, I am on the road. I am traveling. I am down in Florida for a wonderful vacation, but you and I just had one of our own as we went down to Knoxville, Tennessee just last week. And so we are getting a podcast out to everyone despite all the recent travels. Man, going back to Knoxville, it was like going back home. We had quite a time there. And in fact, we were able to snag an interview with the current mayor of Knox County, but you may know him as the Big Red Machine, Kane.
Absolutely. Kane, we were there. We're at Gatlinburg, the Smoky Mountains, back to Farragut, to Tennessee, where we stayed during the making of our film Saturday Supremacy, which should be coming out. Hopefully, we're planning on next summer is a target date for us to get that out. And of course, we couldn't do it without the mayor of Knox County. You mentioned it right there, Kane, Glenn Jacobs.
We do, and we did interview him for our upcoming film because we wanted to really explore sort of the political impact that, being in a college town, an SEC town like Knoxville, how closely tied the Tennessee Volunteer Program is to the people of Knoxville and of East Tennessee. And I'll tell you what, I don't think that I've ever talked to a bigger football fan than Mayor Glenn Jacobs. I mean, this is a guy that's the pride of Northeast Missouri State University, now known as Truman, played football and basketball there. He knew more about MIAA football than I've ever heard anyone talk about. He was reeling off stats about Northwest Missouri State, Lindenwood, Missouri Southern. He knew it all. So I think it was a refreshing situation for Mayor Jacobs to get to talk football and a little wrestling with us for 20, 30 minutes, as opposed to constant barrages of questions about rioting and Black Lives Matters and protesting and viruses. This was a little time off. I could just tell by kind of the gleam in his eye. He enjoyed talking to us because we were able to bring up some topics that I bet he hasn't got to address very much here in the last few months.
Yeah, of course, it's all been about COVID-19 and the movement for social justice and all that, but we brought it down. We talked some football, some WWE. It was a fun interview that you guys will be hearing right here on the Elite Sports Podcast today. But we did talk a little bit about kind of the economic impact of this season and the fans not being in the stadium, not just towards the University of Tennessee, the university, the football program, but also to the city of Knoxville with all the people coming in and staying at the hotels and just being around the town for that week for game day, and how that's going to affect the city of Knoxville, the university, and how they're going to have to kind of push through and overcome that, and hopefully we can get fans back in 2021.
Obviously, this is an SEC decision, but clearly in speaking with Mayor Jacobs, he was involved in the process, at least at some level, and he mentions how probably no more than 25% of the stadium And I think that it's a huge bummer for those of us that football is in our blood. And for us being credentialed members of the media now, to be able to go in there, we don't even know if we're going to be able to go in and cover a game. And we told him that. And this is a very interesting conversation. I think you guys are going to really like this. We really tried to branch out, and these kind of interviews is so important to us. The guests that we've had on here in the past few months, it has really been sort of life-changing for this show, and our viewership and our listenership and our website has grown so much, gasnsports.com. Just in the last few months, we really appreciate you guys sticking with us, sticking with these podcasts, and we're bringing it to you because, you guys have been with us for the last 8 years. We've been doing this 8 years, Noah. 8 years, is that possible? And we've been able to make a lot of connections. We've been able to grow this show and be able to grow our network, GASN Sports, to the point of, it really being a dream come true, and be able to go on the road and interview people like, Glenn Jacobs, someone that we grew up watching in the ring. I was there the night after he debuted in the WWF. He debuted at Bad Blood 97. We're going to get into that because he almost didn't make it to the event, which is hilarious because it's one of the greatest debuts in the history of wrestling. He comes in there, rips the cage open, Hell in a Cell, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, and he stands face to face. He towers over The Undertaker. He tombstones him. Shawn Michaels wins the match. It's just one of those iconic moments. It almost didn't happen, but I was there the next night when he came out on Raw in Kansas City, and it's been, 23 years. What a career. He still pops in from time to time. We're going to talk to him about that, if he's happy with the way the career has kind of ended, or does he got more left in him. I'll tell you from standing next to him, Noah, the guy is an absolute just monster of a human being. He's every bit of 6'8", 6'9", and, what do you think he weighs? 270, 280 now? Maybe still at 300? It was a truly massive individual, but one of the nicest guys we've ever met.
Yeah, absolutely. Dwarfed both of us. We're both around 5'11", and just dwarfing us in sheer girth and size, and just how tall he is. Like you said, 6'8", 6'9", every bit of that. And it's like you said, it's just been a privilege and an honor to be able to go around and interview people like him. In Tennessee, we're also able to interview actor Silk Cozart. We went down to Louisiana to interview Fox Sports broadcaster Tim Brando, former Arkansas player in Springdale, Arkansas. We also were recently able to go down and interview Peyton Hillis. And just so many more people. In 2018, when we were out doing this film at SEC Media Days, we caught up with Coach Spurrier and Joey Galloway, and of course Coach Saban. So there's just so much that's going to be in this film. You've already heard it on these podcasts, and of course we're coming with it again today with Mayor Glenn Jacobs.
Well, you guys already know that I'm pretty much listening to podcasts or music constantly, which means I have to have a good pair of earbuds. So whether you're working from home or working on your fitness, you want what you're listening to be what you're listening to, not what your roommate, neighbor, significant other, or children are listening to. Everyone needs a great pair of wireless earbuds, but before you drop hundreds of dollars on a pair, check out wireless earbuds from Raycon. You already know Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and that they sound just as amazing as other top audio brands you know. The newest model, the Everyday E25 earbuds, are their best one yet, with 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and a more compact design that gives you a nice noise-isolating fit. Raycon's wireless earbuds are so comfortable, perfect for conference calls or binging podcasts. They have been an absolute game changer for me, especially in the gym. Unlike some of your other wireless options, Raycon earbuds are both stylish and discreet, with no dangling wires or stems to distract anyone during video calls. The company was co-founded by Ray J, and celebrities like Snoop Dogg, Melissa Etheridge, Brandy, J.R. Smith, Mike Tyson, and Rich the Kid are obsessed with Raycon. Now's the time to get the latest and greatest from Raycon. Get 15% off your order now at buyraycon.com/musicmania. That's buyraycon.com/musicmania for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. Again, that's buyraycon.com/musicmania.
This is a true pleasure for every sense of the word. Okay, so a little quick backstory. I wasn't there at Bad Blood the night you debuted in the WWE. I was there the next night in Kansas City.
Right.
Having not watched Bad Blood, Paul Bearer comes out with this guy, and it was insane. It was just, and your debut was so impactful, and seeing you the next night, not having any context as to what this red and black. What was that like for you? Because I always heard the story was you almost didn't make it to Bad Blood.
Yes. So Sunday, I'm from the St. Louis area, and Sunday of the pay-per-view, I was staying at my folks' house,
in Bowling Green, Missouri, which is about an hour and a half north of St. Louis, and I was going to ride to the show with a friend of mine, then ride with Paul Bearer for the rest of the loop. And my friend shows up. Mark Morton was his name, and he shows up in possibly the worst car I've ever seen. Rusted out, looked like it was going to fall apart. His wife had to run some errands, and she'd taken their other car. But I'm like, okay, cool. And here we go. And we get to probably about O'Fallon, Missouri, right outside of St. Louis, and smoke starts coming out of his cassette player. And I'm like, dude, there's smoke coming out of your radio. And he looks down, and the next thing you know, bam, there's like a pop, and that was it. And we had to pull over. And this is 1995, or no, I'm sorry, 1997, right? So cell phones weren't as ubiquitous as they are today. But luckily, he did have a cell phone and called his buddy who was going to the show too, and I was able to catch a ride with him. But I almost didn't make it to the show, which needless to say, that would have been the end of my career right there. So the next night we're in Kansas City, and do you remember my opponents that night?
It was like it was 2 or 3 guys.
2 guys.
Yeah.
They're now known as the Hardy Boys. Oh, it was Jeff and Matt.
They were doing dark matches
yep,
back then, yeah.
Sure was, yeah. And I knew them from Smoky Mountain Wrestling. But yeah, it was Matt and Jeff, and that kind of kicked off the storyline where for months I was destroying everybody until I finally ran into Undertaker.
Well, it's been a tremendous career. I mean, kind of at what point did you think that you could make a transition like this into the political realm? Because, a lot of people from entertainment, from wrestling have done it. I mean, Linda McMahon was very connected and still is. At what point did you think it was for you?
Well, I'd always dabbled a little bit in politics. I've always been interested in politics. And literally I woke up one day and I had people talk to me before about running for office and just never really been interested because of where I was in my life, where my family was. But I was coming towards the end of my career and wondering what I was going to do next. And literally one day I woke up and thought, man, I think I could run and I think I could win because the incumbent is term limited. He's now our congressman. And that was it. It's about 4 years before I actually won 3 or 4 years before I actually won the election. But as I said, I'd been involved in some political causes and that sort of thing going back over a decade.
Well, I know you had some time here in Smoky Mountain. Is that really the only ties you had to the Knoxville area, and kind of why here? I mean, what kind of drew you to this area?
I moved here in 1995 to work for Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I met my wife. She's from the Johnson City area. Johnson City is about 90 miles east of Knoxville. Her family had a business closer to Knoxville in Jefferson County. Her mom owned a restaurant on a lake, which was hugely popular, big landmark in that area, and that's what brought us to closer to Knoxville. And then eventually, of course, we were spending so much time in Knoxville, we decided to move to Knoxville itself. This is a great area, and my wife is from this area, and just I fell in love with it, fell in love with her, and never saw any reason to leave. And in WWE, of course, the schedule was such that every week we would fly out and go to a different part of the country, in some cases a different part of the world. So it's not like I was tied here because of my job. I could have lived anywhere in the country where there's an airport. But just like it here so much, and I think it has so much to offer. The people are wonderful. It's convenient as far as traveling. I mean, the 60% of the nation's population is within a day's drive of Knoxville. And even though I have to take generally connections still, even air travel is pretty convenient. So it met all my criteria. It's a great place to live and easy to get in and out of.
Well, a big draw here, of course, is the University of Tennessee. A little bit about us. We went around to all 14 SEC towns and stadiums, covered a game at each one, kind of for what we're doing. What is the impact of the University of Tennessee here is obviously huge. From kind of a political standpoint, like how important is that football program to the state and to this community?
It's massively important. We're a bit of a hybrid. Like Columbia, Missouri, of course, is a college town, right? And here, we're not necessarily a college town per se, but still with UT, that's a huge factor of what Knoxville and Knox County are. We have about 30,000 kids that go to University of Tennessee. On game day, for perspective, Knoxville itself has about 180,000 people. Neyland holds 102, 425, I believe. In that neighborhood, 102,000 people. So Neyland Stadium, we almost see the size of Knoxville double on game days in October. So it's hugely important, and as you can imagine, for economic purposes. I mean, all those people are coming here, and I'm sorry, I have to cut this out. I forget the exact stats. The majority of them are coming from out of the county, and I think about 25% come from out of state. So all these people are coming to Knox County. They're spending money in our restaurants. In some cases, they're staying overnight. They're buying souvenirs. They're shopping and doing all those things. And it's 100,000 people. So you can imagine the economic impact that has. But it's actually bigger than that. If you think about just the pride that we take in University of Tennessee athletics, when the basketball team was ranked number 1 in the country, there was a different feel in this area than normal. I mean, that's all everybody was talking about was Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield and all those guys and what they were doing on the basketball court and how awesome that was. And of course, it's the same with football. I mean, 1998 was a year that none of us are ever going to forget. So University of Tennessee athletics it's very important, not only from an economic standpoint and it being such a big driver for all of us, but also just from that, I guess, prestige and a community morale perspective.
I mean, personally, have you been taken over by it? I mean, you've lived here for 25 years. You're from Missouri. I don't know if you were like a Tiger fan or anything growing up, but kind of from a personal level, has it taken you?
I'm a huge UT football fan. I'm also a big basketball fan. Again, they won the national championship in 1998, right? So I moved here in 95, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. 3 years. I'm here 3 years, and I win a national championship, and this is going to be awesome.
Without Peyton Manning.
Right, exactly. Peyton Manning to graduate is actually T. Martin, the great quarterback, but everybody thinks Peyton won it. It was actually T that won it. But still, I'm thinking, well, they're going to win a national championship every year. It didn't quite turn out that way, but nevertheless, it's just the whole thing about college football is just all the stuff that goes along with it. I mean, we have the Pride of the Southland Band, and they come out, and all the stuff that happens before the game, and the band's out there, and Smokey runs on the field, and all this just amazing things. It's so cool, the atmosphere itself. The first Tennessee game that I actually ever watched on TV, I was trained in Tampa, Florida. I was living with the great Boris Malenko. And he, even though we were in Tampa, he'd spent some time in Knoxville and loved this area. So I can't even remember, man, but this would have been like 1992, 1993. And I didn't know much about Tennessee football, right? So it was a televised game on whatever network. Heath Schuler was the quarterback. Okay, so it was that year, and and they have the Vol Navy, and they got the aerial shots of Neyland Stadium. I've never seen it. There's nothing like SEC football. And of course, when I was a kid, Missouri was in the Big 8, and that was awesome because they would play Oklahoma and Nebraska, and Oklahoma and Nebraska seemed to win national championships like every other year. But still, there's just a difference. SEC football is just big. For us, since we don't have a professional team, this is our professional team, is the University of Tennessee. And you see that in Alabama as well, like Tuscaloosa. University of Alabama is like, that's what everybody talks about. So it's huge. And I get wrapped up in it just as much as anybody else does.
And that's kind of what's happened. I mean, like you said, Missouri's in the Big 8. I grew up going to games in Lawrence, Kansas, and in Manhattan, Kansas, and Ames, Iowa. When Missouri moved to this conference, it's almost like, we felt kind of cool by association. Like, you don't get to date the hot girl, but your friends kind of date the hot girl, right? So just to be able to explore, and that's kind of was my next question.
So actually, I have a question for you. So when I'm growing up, Missouri's in the Big 8. The Big 8's arguably the best conference in the country.
Yeah.
And then It's like, oh, let's switch to the SEC. The SEC is arguably the best conference in the country. It's like Mizzou. No offense to my home, my friends back in Missouri, but come on, guys. It's
Missouri's 5-3 against Tennessee.
Actually, they are. They've had a lot of success. They've done well in the SEC.
Like I said, but the financial side. When the Big 8 added Texas Tech, A&M, and Baylor, Texas sort of gain control of that league. That's why Nebraska left. So, I think for Missouri and I think for the SEC, what a great pairing. A&M comes over, the SEC network takes off, and all of a sudden, and now I don't know what that's going to look like. If there's, with this season coming up, what the windfall of no college football season, what's the impact of that?
It's going to be enormous, and it's going to have a ripple effect all through our economy, I think really all through our region. From what I understand currently, the plan is to have limited capacity. That is, I believe the SEC makes the call on kind of what the overall thing looks like, but it's going to vary university by university. A lot of that's dependent on the state government. And I guess the best case scenario I see is, like a 25% capacity at the various stadiums. Well, again, what that does for us is for economic impact, it's probably less than a quarter of what it would normally be.
Sure. Which,
again, we're talking tens of millions of dollars that comes in over the course of a 7 or 8 game, 7 or 8 weekends throughout the fall. And then also it's just the thought of, I guess I'm a lot less excited about this year because, again, the whole thing is when I go to the games, it's kind of like in WWE where you have this huge crowd and you're feeding off the crowd. Well, as a fan, it's and I'm sure it's the same as the players. It's a lot the same thing. You have all these people there. You have all these things going on, and you can't replicate that just by having it on TV or by having a very limited number of people there. Here our spring game's called the Orange-White game. And if you're a hardcore fan, people go to it. They get about, they get 25,000, 30,000 people at it. But it does not have that same atmosphere, of course, as when you're playing the University of Alabama or you're playing the University of Florida. So I think that it's just one of those things that unfortunately it's going to have an economic ripple effect. And I think that, too, sports are a great way for people to forget about other things that are going on in their lives and can be a huge pick-me-up. And I think we're going to miss that aspect of it, too. I think overall for our community, it will kind of hurt our morale.
And this trickles down. It's sports entertainment as well. Can you imagine the Inferno match? You're on fire, and there's no crowd.
Right. I don't know how.
Gratification is what drives.
Sure. I don't know how the performers in WWE are doing it because so much of that business is that crowd interaction and the crowd feeding off of you and you feeding off of the crowd. So it's this completely different dynamic.
And we're media members, SEC credentialed, and we don't even know. Can we go to a game?
Right.
Can we sit in a press box? Can we interview a player?
Right.
Can we come in and interview today without, it's there's just so much, and it's I'm kind of an A to B person, like my brain works A to B. When it starts throwing stuff off, I'm like, but.
Well, I think we're all that way. And, just even for planning, for anyone, people are probably already planning coming to games and stuff, and that's all been thrown up in the air.
Yeah, Missouri plays here, I think, in October,
right.
And we were planning on coming. We've covered Missouri playing here before. We're excited about it, and can you do it? It's,
right.
We're just hope for the best, certainly. So I've got to ask you about this. I've got to ask you a Donald Trump question in a way that I bet you haven't been asked before. You were on the card at WrestleMania 23. You wrestled the Great Khali, I believe.
Yes.
You lost that match.
I did.
Shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, we don't bring that up, please.
Looking.
Yeah.
So, Bruce Pritchard, did he have something to do with that?
Bruce, I don't think Bruce did, actually.
That was good. That was obviously WrestleMania. Donald Trump comes in. Did you have an opportunity to meet Donald during that?
I don't remember, actually. I think we may have passed in the hallway and said hello and shook hands, but that was the extent of it, pretty much.
He could have been the next Pete Rose for you, wouldn't that have been?
I know, that would have been cool. But no, I don't think I did. I think that because you got to remember, he wasn't it wasn't like he was president then. You know, it was just like, you know, Donald Trump. Well, that's kind of cool, but he's Donald Trump. It's not like he's now, you know, President Trump. So, you know, it's not like meeting him would have been like one of those things that really, oh my gosh, I met Donald Trump, right? So I think I actually talked to him for just a second. You know, just met him in passing. But I think that was it.
I mean, have you had a lot of interaction since? I don't know how much. Nothing actually. I've been to the White House a couple times, but I've seen him when he's spoken at various things. So I've been in the same room, but it's not like I get to stay up and go, "Hey Don, what's going on, man?" So yeah, it's just a little different than that. Okay, so we were talking before about you playing football at Truman State. We're going everywhere here. This is kind of how we do it. What position did you play? What were you 6'10" in college? How much did you weigh back then? I'm assuming you played offensive tackle.
Yeah, when I graduated high school, I had not played football in high school. I graduated high school about 6'8", and I probably weighed 230, 235. Didn't lift weights in high school. That was back when people said that you'd get muscle bound. Some coaches actually in high school didn't want me to lift weights. Well, when I got recruited into college, of course, they were all about it. They're much more sophisticated than my high school coaches had been. So I put on like 15 pounds between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college. So I came in, I was like 250. That was my body type is that way, right? Yeah. And then I just I kept on lifting and kept on eating. And so by the time my eligibility in basketball was up, I weighed like 285. Wow. And I'm 6'8". Yeah. So that's a lot of weight to be carrying up and down a basketball court. And it was a Division II school. So, I was an anomaly, just physically. So I remember just one day, the football coach is just sitting he's literally watching practice, and we're running suicides at the end of practice, and he's just watching. And then after the season, he comes to me, and I didn't have any eligibility left in basketball, but I could have, if I switched sports, I'd gain another year of eligibility. And he comes to me, and he's like, you're not going to play professional basketball. He's like, and why would you even want to? You weigh 280 pounds, 285 pounds, and you're running up and out of basketball court. You belong. Your knees, yeah. He's like, you belong on the football field, and so I did. I still had some work to do on my degree, so I switched sports and ended up playing football. By the time, and I actually played 2 years. We were able to split my year of eligibility into 2 years, and I by that time I was doing some graduate work and that kind of stuff academically. But by the time that I was ready to go, I weighed about 320, 6'8". I ran a 5 flat 40. I benched my the 25 rep bench test. I did that 37 times. So I was. We had pro scouts, coming and looking at me, and I played offensive tackle, and I had good lateral movement because I played basketball for all those years. And then is actually the first practice of game week. Got all the way through. Back then we had 2-a-days and all that stuff, and it was brutal during the summer. So then I got the first practice game week. Practice was over. We were putting in trick plays. Didn't have the helmet or shoulder pads on, walking through a reverse, wide receiver reverse, and I blew my knee out.
Were you pulling on that play and got chop blocked?
No, there's no contact. No, it was no contact. We were literally walking through. We were walking through, putting trick plays in, and I went to pivot because I let the outside linebacker go around me, and then the wide receiver's getting the handoff, and of course the OLB has to switch directions, and there I am to block him and free up the wide receiver. And I think I got my cleat stuck in a hole and just blew out my knee, and that was I went to the Bears camp as a free agent and couldn't pass the physical, so I got sent home, and that was the end of my football career. It's rather ignoble to say the best, but
well, we've seen the Undertaker's your brother, Mark Calloway. The Undertaker's had a 4-part series on WWE Network. It was tremendous, and you were in it a lot, and kind of the impact that he had on you and your relationship. And he kind of announced his retirement at the end. Your guys' last match was, I think, in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And, you said before you weren't happy with kind of how that match went. Triple H tore his pec.
Yeah, it was.
Shawn Michaels had shaved his head. He looked like me.
It was.
I mean,
that was a comedy of errors. Unfortunately, there's a lot of everything that went wrong, could have went wrong, did go wrong in that match.
I mean, are you cool? Are you okay with just kind of leaving it there and that being kind of the end? I mean, I know you came in. I think you did Stone Cold's podcast, and on Broken Skull. You kind of pop in, of course. I mean, you always have a home there. But are you kind of cool leaving the in-ring stuff with
we never actually leave it all the way. WWE was here, I guess, last year, and I won the 24/7 championship at Neyland Stadium, which was pretty awesome. So never leave it all the way. And I think that we all want that like one last huge moment. And frankly, the four of us didn't get that in Saudi Arabia.
All four of the Mount Rushmore guys.
Yeah. I mean, if it comes up again, I'd love to be able to do that. But if it doesn't, I'm actually content where I'm at.
I really want to see you and Rob Gronkowski do a little 24/7 title. Maybe we'll get Patrick Mahomes involved.
There you go.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor Jacobs, it's been a true pleasure, man. I can't thank you enough. And
I've got one.
Sure.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about the atmosphere earlier, just what makes Tennessee and Knoxville a key destination in the SEC. You got the Ball Navy, 102,000 singing Rocky Top, and just that grand palace that is Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, it's just amazing. When the festivities start, which is generally after a lot of tailgating, of course, but imagine you have the Vol Walk, which you have thousands of people lined up as the football team makes their way into the stadium. Then when the game's about to start, you have the Pride of the Southland band, and they come out, and one of the best marching bands in the country, and have a tremendous routine that they do, and just the whole atmosphere. I mean, all those people, and
the colors, too.
I mean, and then what sometimes you do is they have the stadium arranged and get with people beforehand, so it's checkerboard. So depending on what section you're in, you wear orange or white. And there's just so many traditions and things that, I mean, in many cases you have to be reminded, of why they do this and why they do that. I've been in the football locker room. I've seen the sign that says, "I'll give my all for Tennessee today." And I've actually gotten even to sit behind the desk where they have the post-game press conference and all that stuff. And I'll tell you too, man, you go like, I got to take my granddaughter on a behind-the-scenes tour of the Lady Vols facility. Got to watch a practice with them, and of course, the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame is here in Knoxville. And a lot of that is due to the influence of Pat Summitt and everything that she did. And it's, when we look at WWE and the popularity and the quality of the women's division, which is something I know that all of us that in WWE are very proud of. And I feel the same way about UT women's basketball. It's just amazing, pioneer in that area. Couple years ago, I got to go to the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I got to meet Nancy Lieberman, Ann Myers, like these women that I watched growing up that were as good as the men and played with the men in many cases. Yeah. But anyway, I got to take a behind-the-scenes tour of the Lady Vols facility. Brother, I'm sitting there with all those national championship trophies in the background, and it was just the most amazing thing that I have ever experienced in sports, to be close to that kind of greatness. And that's what Tennessee athletics is, and that's what it represents. And that's what it represents for our community.
Your wife being from here, you moving here in '95. Kevin Nash played basketball here in Tennessee.
Did you ever
talk to him about that at all?
Not really. the people still bring that up to me. In fact, Kevin was in town within the past couple of years speaking at the quarterback club or one of the alumni associations about his experiences playing for a UT basketball team and then, of course, in the wrestling. So, yeah.
Small world.
It really is. It really is.
Hey, Dwayne Johnson, he bought the XFL, and he's talking politics. I think if ever someone could jump into that realm, it could be him.
Yeah.
That could be
And I need to talk to him about an XFL team here in Knoxville.
That'd
be cool.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
It was just yesterday.
Unfortunately, the XFL was doing really well, and the business model was working, and then the coronavirus killed it. And I said, I think that, who knows what the future would have held, but they were doing really well. And that was very unfortunate what happened.
Snake bitten twice in a row.
I know, right? It's like, dude, you can't just when the first time. I think they learned from that experience and really had a great business model and tailored it for TV and had done all these things and it was working. And then this once in a lifetime thing happens and puts them out.
We're gonna get back. We're gonna get back to some normalcy at some point. We promised it. So we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, it's been great.
Glenn,
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Just sitting down with him in the conference room there at the city council building there in Knoxville was a surreal moment. We're sitting there just right across the room. It's one thing we do a lot of interviews on Zoom or, phone calls or what have you, but to be able to do it in person and really make a connection with someone. And I felt like he really enjoyed the interview because we were talking about a lot of things that, aren't really politically based because that's just not what we do, Noah. It just isn't us. It's not in our makeup, man. I don't know that we'll ever be able to adapt to this politically charged sports world that we're currently living in, and I hope we move on from it at some point, please.
Yeah, it's going to be a long season, this 2020 is, and hopefully we can get past this. We can get that vaccine, get past this. In 2021, we can get back to just sticking to sports because that's what we do best.
Well, the SEC has announced its initial protocols, and you've been...
Give it to me.
Well, yeah, exactly. I know that you were going to say that because you've been so ardently against the idea that college football can even happen. And this does feel to me, now that it's becoming more reality in my mind, this does seem like we're kicking the can down the road just a little bit. But the SEC is talking about 3 mandatory tests a week for players and staff, and also mandatory face coverings for those on the sidelines that are not playing. Man, I tell you, the more that this goes on, the more it feels like we just aren't ever going to be able to get this thing going. Because not only that, you've got players in other conferences trying to unionize, make demands of universities. Are we witnessing the crumbling of the college football system as we know it?
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to cave to that, and they may have to sit out and we'll come back in 2021 and revisit this and hopefully get a normal season under our belts. And like I've said from the very beginning, I think college football will start, but it just won't be able to complete its season. But I've heard other people like Mike Florio on Pro Football Talk and his co-host there, Chris Sims, say they don't even think it's going to start. They don't see how it's possible with the kids going back to campus and everything. We talked about that a little bit last week on the show here. And so, but I still believe that they're going to try to start a season, but just with the amount of kids and the universities and everyone playing football in college and going back to the campuses and classes and everyone around there, that it's just not going to be able to complete. There's going to be too many COVID cases, too many little hot spots that appear during the season that they're just not going to be able to complete it.
This is all the more reason why the world needs us. They need our film, Saturday Supremacy. Hope to be having it out by summer of 2021. That is the goal. That's what we're working on. And you know what? We may look back at our film as sort of an antique, as sort of a time period piece, hearkening us back to the days when fans could be in stadiums, that tailgates ran rampant. Noah, it was the best of times. Now it's the worst of times. Let's get back to some level of normalcy before we end this week's edition of the Elite Sports Podcast, because I got to get back out to the beach, out to the Florida sun here. Last Chance U, Season 5 is out. They covered Laney College.
Baby.
Hey, we were in Oakland. We were able to watch the entire season while we were kind of doing work in our hotels in between interviews in Knoxville. So how does it stack up in your mind? They made a bold move, in my opinion, going to Laney College. We'd already been 2 seasons in East Mississippi. We went to 2 seasons in Independence, Kansas, and then we finish up in Laney College in Oakland, where The football is obviously subpar, and to me, it just didn't stack up. It wasn't as action-packed. We didn't get to know the kids as well. The coach was a very nice guy, but just kind of robotic. I don't know. I just didn't take much from this latest season. What say you?
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, it had some interesting moments, but it didn't carry a whole season. It was too much focused on John Beam, this great coach there. But like you said, the football is substandard. It's not up to par to what we have grown accustomed to with Last Chance U, especially at East Mississippi Community College and what we saw in Scuba there. But yeah, we didn't get to see the players enough. The coaches seemed just like fake, like they were told to sit at this bar night after night. It felt like they didn't really do that. They weren't really connected. They don't really go out every night and talk. It was like, okay, we need you guys to talk football. I know you're not really friends. You don't really hang out much, but we're going to put you in this bar setting and you're going to talk football and action. And then we saw what we saw, and it felt like you said, robotic there, and just like it wasn't real, like it was produced.
It was, and especially now, having the last couple of days to go back and watch some of the earlier seasons, it's like, wow, this contrast is stark. I felt like in the beginning, I mean, maybe it's because the producers just struck gold going to East Mississippi, where you got this, Buddy Stevens, who's insane, and there's brawling, there's high profile athletes, there's college recruiters in there, and maybe the show just sort of slowly got watered down. I mean, I know they go to Independence, Kansas, and Jason Brown and everything that that he's about, when he was sort of a different level of crazy from like a Buddy Stevens. But I don't know, it just seems like it slowly got watered down, and I really loved those first two seasons, and to see where some of those kids went. After that, it's like, you didn't have a lot of the guys going to bigger colleges or going to the NFL, whereas from East Mississippi, man, you had some real players in there. And then you get down to Laney College, where I think there was one guy, the corner, that went to Oregon State or something like that. Other than that, there was just no one. It's low-level football, and it lost me.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got John Franklin from East Mississippi, who's in the NFL. He's a corner now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for Tom Brady, who's going to be down there. I don't know if he's going to make the team. Probably not. It'll probably be a struggle for him to do it. But if there's a secondary that he can make it in, and we love Coach Kevin Ross, former Chief, who's now the defensive backs coach there in Tampa Bay. He's got a thin bunch there, so maybe Jonathan Franklin can make that team at the lower end of that secondary. But yeah, we love seeing players like Ronald Ollie and Cam Carter there at East Mississippi. They drive you nuts because they've got all the talent in the world, and they seem fine with just letting it blow by them, and they got to challenge coaches, challenge authority. They're lazy, they're lackadaisical, there's something just, they're not motivated, and they just seem like they can rest on their laurels and their talent, and they'll make it. And the coaches are telling them, no, you're not. This is the last chance. Like, this is why it's called Last Chance U, and you're not performing out there, you're not going to classes, and you're just going to fall by the wayside. And they just don't seem to believe it, and it frustrates you because you want the best for them. You want them to wind up at an Alabama to be a first-round pick. And Ronald Ollie spent a little time with the Raiders before he got shipped out of there because of attitude problems and his laziness there. And Cam Carter, he went to Pitt and then to Kane, and now he's nowhere. He's not in the NFL. So the problems rang true all the way through their careers, and now you're wondering what's next for them, because they mentioned it in the show. There was no plan B for them. Making it to the NFL was their only plan. So now they're just warehouse workers, Walmart, 7-Eleven. We hope they can get back on track, but it doesn't look good.
Well, if you're wondering what's next for us, we are keeping it rolling on into the final month here of the summer. They say August is the Sunday of summer, but we're going to keep it rolling because we have some great interviews coming up with the likes of, we've got Brandon Flowers coming up, former Chief. We have Jim Donnan, the former coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, on the horizon. And not only that, we have Hurricane Peter McNeely, Noah, the man who famously claimed he was going to wrap Mike Tyson in a cocoon of horror only to get knocked out in the first round. It's all coming up here on the Elite Sports Podcast, and I am here for every second of it. Can't wait. Bring a spectacular piece of Napa Valley right to your doorstep today with Vermeil Wines.
Former legendary Chiefs and NFL coach Dick Vermeil started Vermeil Wines back in 1999, but his undying devotion to bringing a taste of Napa Valley to the masses actually goes back generations.
Well, it started as a hobby of making 150 to 200 cases of Cabernet, Jean-Louis Vermeil Cabernet, my dad's name and my great-grandfather's name.
Vermeil wines are grown in Coach Vermeil's hometown of Calistoga, California, at the top of Napa Valley, where the vineyards are over 100 years old.
Browse all the signature wine options or become an official member today at vermeilwines.com.
Choose from 3, 6, or 12 bottles and enjoy a 15% savings with shipments each February, May, and September. You'll also get access to exclusive offerings and events, such as virtual wine tastings with Coach Vermeil himself, as well as member-only wines.
Try the Signature Club, where you get 1 case per year, a 20% savings, 4 bottles of each Cabernet. These are the highest-rated wines at $1 shipping all year.
To join, visit vermeilwines.com now or call 707-254-9881.
Use promo code ELITE for $1 shipping on 3+ bottles of wine. This will also apply to your first wine club order if you mention ELITE at sign-up.